Today I'm going over my top 10 favorite survival films on physical media. So let's rock this. Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz. So I'm talking about my favorite survival movies today. Last year, I wrote an article for an online entertainment publication where I laid out some of what I think are the best survival movies ever made. And at the time, there was a particular film on my list that I couldn't seem to find on Blu-ray. It was an old 90s gem that I remembered really liking, but there was no Blu-ray release for it at the time. And I wasn't able to rewatch the film before I did that list. Well, last week, Shout Factory finally revived this old gem on Blu-ray for what I think is the first time. I think it only ever got a DVD release prior to that. So I, of course, had pre-ordered the film. I got it last week. I checked it out. It was so great to see this film after all this time. And it got me to thinking that now might be a good time to do a video on this topic. So today I'm going over my top 10 favorite survival movies of all time, plus a few honorable mentions at the end that you'll definitely want to stick around for. Now, I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach with this list today. The kind of titles I've chosen are not all of the traditional survival type movie variety where you've got people battling natural elements or natural predatory creatures or adverse weather conditions, although there are certainly some of those on this list as well. But given the nature of this channel, I really wanted to explore the survival concept in a more expanded way and be able to include survival type movies that have more of an action, sci-fi, or dystopian bent to them. Or that otherwise maybe try to do something just a little different with the survival concept that goes beyond just the standard natural environmental threats. That includes maybe like a human threat as well, right? For me, the best survival films out there have both natural environmental threats and human threats. Also, while there are a couple films on this list that are based on true stories, I tried to focus more on fictional stories rather than real-world survival here. Just because those are the types of survival films that I tend to be into. I'm an action sci-fi dystopian guy, you know, so those are the kind of films that I tend to gravitate more towards. Now, keep in mind, there are going to be a lot of great titles out there that don't make this list, that many people would actually consider essential choices. But as always, this is just my opinion, based on the films that I've personally seen. And there are a few notable survival films that I have not seen yet, like The Revenant, for example. So some of those films are not going to be on this list today. You know, I chose titles here that I've not only seen myself, but that personally resonated the most with me of the ones that I've seen. But I want to invite you guys to comment down below with your own survival movie recommendations, especially if there are any significant titles I miss that you think I really should check out based on my love of the titles that I do mention here. Yeah, make sure you leave a comment. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get right into this list. And starting off at number 10 is the film I was just referring to in my opening. That is Surviving the Game from 1994. This is a great survival film. It has a very strong human threat component to it. Great cast. You got Ice-T in this. You got Charles S. Dutton. You got Rutger Hauer. You also have F. Murray Abraham and the mighty Gary Busey, who is always fun to watch. Yeah, this is just a great film. Now, like I said in my opening, Shout Factory just released this film last week. I hadn't seen it myself since the 90s, and I do remember watching this on cable TV in the 90s, and I really enjoyed it back then. And then I kind of forgot about the film for many years until I went to do that survival movie article that I was talking about last year. So yeah, it was cool to revisit this one. Like I said, I think it's the first time this has ever made it to Blu-ray. It only ever had a DVD release before this, and it's just a great film. Now, I would recommend going into this knowing as little about the film as possible. I think that's how you get the best experience out of it. Just that's my personal view on it, right? So I would recommend not even reading the synopsis for this. You know, it's an action thriller, it's a survival movie, and it has a human threat component. I would go in just knowing that and nothing more. And just kind of let the story unfold and wash over you, right? So yeah, Surviving the Game, just a really fun ride. If you've never seen it, I would highly recommend it. A couple housekeeping notes about this. This did not come with a slipcover. This is pretty bare bones. It doesn't even have a whole lot of special features. It's just got a commentary track by the director, and I think that's it. So, you know, the transfer looks great. It's a solid restoration. So aside from the no slip and limited special features, I didn't really have any complaints about this. So, like I said, just came out last week. So definitely consider picking this one up if you've never seen it. Moving on to number 9, we have a classic survival film from 1972, and that is, of course, Deliverance, starring the great Jon Voight, Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty. Who else is in this? Ronnie Cox. Yeah, this is a great film, and you know, it's like I said, kind of a classic, right? And I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one. I only saw this myself for the first time maybe about a year and a half ago. So this is not a film, even though I know it's a classic, it's not a film that I have watched over the years. So, but yeah, I really like this film. It's a great survival, like out in the wilderness type film, but there is also very much a human threat component as well. And like I said earlier, some of the best survival films, I think, combine both natural elements and human threats. I won't say too much about this. I'm guessing a lot of you have probably seen this one, but if by some chance you've never seen Deliverance, it's a classic, and it's definitely one worth watching. Next up, moving on to number 8, and I do think I'm maybe cheating just a little bit here. I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. This one I just had to get on the list. I love it, and that is Cliffhanger from 1993. Great Stallone film. You know, this to me, I know it's an action thriller. It's very much an action thriller. So I don't know. Some people might have a hard time characterizing this as a survival film, but it's very much a survival film to me. I think it has all the elements that make for a good survival film. You do have natural environmental threats, really cold weather. We're dealing with rock climbing, right? So you fall, you die. So yeah, that certainly can be kind of a hairy situation when you're dealing with rock climbing and heights, right? But there is also a very strong human threat component here, courtesy of the great John Lithgow, who just delivers a killer performance in this film. You just gotta love Lithgow. I mean, John Lithgow always does a great job in anything he's in, but I've always found him to be a particularly effective villain in the films that he's been a villain in. So yeah, I know this isn't like a straight survival film, but there is definitely a very strong survival component here. I mean, even if you can survive the weather elements, there's no guarantee that you're going to survive the human threat in this one, right? So yeah, just a great action thriller that also happens to double as a survival film, or at least I think it does. So if by some chance you've never seen this one, it looks fantastic on 4K. The scenery and whatnot just looks amazing on 4K. So yeah, check this one out. It's a great film. Okay, and moving on to number 7, I've got here what I think is like the ultimate dystopian survival film, and that is, of course, The Hunger Games. Now, I'm going to assume most of you have probably seen this by now. This is, of course, becoming kind of a classic in its own right. And, of course, we have the new prequel movie just opening in theaters this weekend, actually. So, but yeah, I haven't gotten around to upgrading this one to 4K yet. I plan on upgrading it at some point, but I just haven't been in the mood to rewatch these things. And for me to want to upgrade something, usually I have to be in the mood to actually want to see it at that time. Otherwise, it just kind of sits on my wish list for a while until I'm ready to, you know, get around to picking it up. But now this isn't the greatest set. This was like a budget Hunger Games set where I get all 4 films. The one thing I don't like about this is you got 2 films on each disc, and that kind of sucks, right? So, so yeah, you're not going to get the best quality here. I do plan to upgrade this to 4K at some point down the line, so I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But anyway, yeah, what can we say about The Hunger Games, right? I mean, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure most of you have seen it, but we've got this kind of totalitarian or authoritarian collectivist society that controls the population. And this government holds this brutal, sadistic game every few years that it forces the population's youth to participate in. And of course, the reason for the games are there to serve as a reminder of what will happen if you step out of line or rebel against the government in any way, shape, or form. You will be quashed. You will be taken out. And that's really what this film is about, right? It's about this society and this game serving as a reminder of authoritarian government control. And of course, it's very much a survival story. And it's not just about surviving the game, it's about surviving life in this society, right? So yeah, I won't say too much more about Hunger Games other than that. I just think it fits perfectly on this list. It's a great survival film and just a great story all the way around. Okay, and moving on to number 6, I have a film here that I don't actually own on physical media, at least not yet, but it is an excellent film that I would highly recommend, and that is The Impossible from 2012. The film's about a family vacationing in Thailand when the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami hits, and they've got to try and survive that. The film's got an excellent cast. You have Naomi Watts, you have Ewan McGregor, and you have Tom Holland in this film as well. And, you know, for me, I personally found that this film really kind of tugged at the heartstrings quite a bit. If you are a parent, this film is intense and will have an impact on you for sure. You know, it's about this family trying to survive this, and of course the family gets separated, and so they've got to reunite, and it's just this big mess. But this is a really intense ride. The footage of the tsunami hitting is awesome. It's just really well done, and it's just a great movie all the way around. By the way, this is based on a true story. It's about a real family that survived this tsunami. It's just a really intense ride that packs a really strong emotional punch. And like I said, especially if you happen to be a parent. So if by some chance you've never seen The Impossible, you should definitely check it out at some point. Next up at number 5, we have another true story, and that is 1995's Apollo 13, Survival in Space. The film just has an amazing cast, you know, Gary Sinise, Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, Ed Harris, directed by the great Ron Howard. I mean, those are some serious bona fides, right? This is one of those ones I can watch over and over again. You know, I haven't actually seen it for a while, but, you know, this is one that I can definitely rewatch. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. Just a really well done film. I do plan to upgrade this one to 4K at some point. I just haven't been in the mood to rewatch it lately. So, you know, I haven't gotten around to upgrading it yet. But the next time I'm in the mood to rewatch this, I will probably pick up the 4K, even though I've had this 15th anniversary edition for, well, probably since about 2010. So yeah, you know, I think this has kind of become a bit of a classic in its own right, and it's just an excellent film. So yeah, Apollo 13 at my number 5. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and consider subscribing to the channel and maybe hit that notification bell as well, so you can be alerted when I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. Also, don't forget to like the videos as well. It really helps with the channel's visibility out there, helps with the algorithm. So thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Okay, for number 4, I chose a great survival film that desperately needs a Blu-ray and/or 4K release, and that is 2002's Panic Room. Great David Fincher film with an awesome cast. You got Jodie Foster, Kristen Stewart, Forrest Whitaker's in this, Jared Leto, who, well, I don't really care about him. I'm not a big Jared fan, but it's just a great cast and a really well done film. And it is, of course, about surviving a home invasion type situation. And of course, the house in question has a panic room. So I'll just leave it at that. If you've never seen this film, it is excellent, really well done. We've been hearing rumblings for quite some time that this movie is supposed to get a 4K release at some point. You know, I've heard David Fincher wasn't like the biggest fan of 4K, but hopefully he's warmed up to that and kind of come around and changed his tune a bit, because, you know, we really do need to see more of his stuff on 4K. And Panic Room is just an excellent film. Lots of great suspense, and it's very much about surviving a pretty hairy situation. Now, I do have an old DVD of this title, but it is unfortunately packed up and in storage, so I'm not able to show that to you. That's what I do with most of my old DVDs. They're all packed up and in storage. I don't really have any interest in watching them. I just can't hang with standard definition. It just doesn't work for me. So, but I had forgotten until I did this list that I actually had this movie. I just haven't watched it or seen the DVD in quite some time. But that was one that I remembered that I have in storage somewhere that I kind of wished I had left out, just so I could at least show you guys, you know, the old DVD at the very least for this list. But anyway, if you've never seen this film, it's a great film, and I'm looking forward to it coming out on 4K at some point because it has been a long time since I've seen this one, and I really enjoyed it last time I did watch it years ago. Coming in at number 3 is another film I don't own on physical media yet, but I do plan to pick it up at some point, and that is Alive from 1993. This is an incredible survival film, really well done. You got an early performance from Ethan Hawke in this. This film is based on a true story. It's about the Uruguayan, I think it's Uruguayan rugby team traveling to Chile to play a game, and their plane runs into problems and crashes in the Andes Mountains. Well, the survivors have to survive for like 2 months before they're rescued. This is just such an excellent film. It's a really intense ride, especially, the plane crash near the beginning of the film. It's just really intense. And then the things that happen after that, the things that they have to do to survive is pretty, well, like I said, intense, right? I'll admit, it's probably not the kind of film that I could rewatch multiple times over and over again, but that's usually the case with true story-based survival films for me. I like them. I think they're really well done, but I can only watch them so many times. And that's why I don't own it on physical media yet, because I like I said, I have to be in the mood to want to watch or rewatch something in order to buy it on physical media. But yeah, Alive is just a fantastic film. I think it's one of the best real-world survival stories ever put to film. It's really well done, and you definitely feel something. It packs a raw emotional punch. And yeah, you definitely feel something for these people and the situation they're in. So if this sounds like your cup of tea, your type of survival film, then yeah, I would definitely recommend giving it a watch if you've never seen it. Okay, and next up at number 2, we have The Martian from the great Ridley Scott. I absolutely love this film. So well done. I'm not even as into Matt Damon these days as I used to be, but he did a great job with this film. This is very much a space survival story, and I think it's one of the best ones ever made. In fact, next to Alien, this is actually my favorite Ridley Scott film. It's just so well done. And the 4K, by the way, looks amazing on this. It's a great transfer. And yeah, if you've never seen it, you should definitely check out The Martian at some point. I do recommend checking out the extended version over the theatrical cut. I think it's like 8 or 9 minutes longer or something like that. So it's not a whole lot of extra footage, but that extra footage is definitely worth checking out. And if you're anything like me, when there's kind of like a director's cut like this, you want to see everything that's available on the film, right? So this also has some amazing special features, by the way. There's a killer making of documentary where you learn so much about what they did here and the different types of effects they used, the different locations that they used for shooting, and how they blended real world locations with like CGI as well. So anyway, great film. If you've never seen The Martian, yeah, you definitely got to check this out. Okay, and at number 1 is my favorite survival movie of all time, and that's The Edge from 1997. Fantastic film starring Anthony Hopkins. You got Alec Baldwin in this, Elle Macpherson. Just a great, almost more of a traditional survival film, right? These guys get stuck out in, I believe it's the Alaskan wilderness. It's been quite a few years since I've seen this. It is a film that I've seen quite a few times. It used to play all the time on cable TV back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I used to watch it quite a bit. I do think it has a pretty high rewatch value. Now, I'll admit I'm not the biggest fan of Alec Baldwin at all, but if you can stomach Alec Baldwin, it's a good film, and Anthony Hopkins is awesome in this. He does a great job. I think he's like a billionaire, if I remember correctly, and he's a really smart billionaire who has just natural common sense, and he has this little survival book too that he keeps getting tips from, and it helps him get through this whole ordeal. But you've got great environmental threats here. Certainly got the situation they're in, the environment that they're in, the Alaskan wilderness, but you've got bears, and that's a problem. Bears are no joke, right? So they have to contend with both environmental elements, the predatory creatures, and there is a human threat component as well. But that's all I'll say about it. I don't want to give too much away for those who have never seen the film. If by some chance you have never seen this film, you should definitely check it out. In fact, it's one I'm actually going to be picking up on Blu-ray fairly soon, because I've been in the mood to rewatch it after all these years. I haven't seen it for quite a few years, but I've lately been in the mood to rewatch it. And when I get in the mood to rewatch stuff that I don't currently have in my collection, that's usually the time that I'm going to pick up something on Blu-ray or 4K. Now, this one's never been released on 4K. It's only on Blu-ray. So, but great film. If you've never seen it, yeah, definitely check it out. Okay, so that wraps it up for my top 10. But of course, I also have a few honorable mentions that I want to touch on real quick here. Not too many, and I am going to breeze through these pretty quickly, but definitely want to mention them at least, because there's a lot of great survival films out there that, of course, I wasn't able to touch on. So the first one is a film from 2016, and that is called Passengers. You got Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. This is a great film, and it looks amazing on 4K, by the way. I think you could even make the case this is a reference disc. It is very high quality. The image is pristine, and it's just pretty stunning what they were able to do with this one. But it's a great it's a space survival film. It's been a little bit since I've seen this, so I can't remember where exactly they were traveling to, but essentially they're trying to go and colonize a new planet somewhere, if I remember right. And, all these people are heading there to be part of that new colony. And Chris Pratt's character, he wakes up early, like something malfunctions with his cryo sleep machine or whatnot. And he wakes up early, like 90 years early, right? Everybody is in cryo sleep on the ship except for him. And they're not supposed to arrive at their destination for like 90 years or something. So this whole situation develops from that he has to figure out how to survive, right? Him and Jennifer Lawrence. So it's a really cool movie. And, it does tug at the heartstrings a little bit. There are a few points of frustration with the characters, or at least with maybe Chris Pratt's character, but I won't go too much into that. If you've never seen it, yeah, you definitely should check it out. Passengers. Okay, next up is a 1977 movie with the great Hal Holbrook, and that is Rituals. Now, this one might be a little bit under the radar for some. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this one. This was put out by Scorpion, releasing this Blu-ray. And like I said, stars Hal Holbrook. It really is a tour de force for Hal Holbrook. In fact, I would even go so far as to say I think this may be Hal Holbrook's best role, his best performance ever in any film. And he's been in a lot of films. So that's saying something. But it's very much kind of like a Deliverance type story. It's very similar to Deliverance. It's not exactly the same, but it's got a very similar premise. So it's I think 4 doctors, if I remember right, are going out on this wilderness trip, and someone decides to fuck with them. So, and then, Hal Holbrook kind of emerges as kind of the leader in this situation a bit. So, but it's a great film. Now, I will admit the quality of this Blu-ray is just kind of okay. And it's not because of the restoration or because of the Blu-ray itself. It's because I think the source elements for the film were not in very good condition. They do say at the beginning of the film that they kind of had to piece this together from multiple source elements, from the best surviving source elements available. And so they do indicate that it looks a little rough, that there was only so much they could do for this particular title, and the film does look pretty rough. I'll admit that it's not a great looking restoration by any stretch, but it's a good film. And if you like Deliverance, if you like those types of movies, you might really dig this one as well. So check it out. Another great survival film I wanted to mention from 2013 was Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Looney. Yeah, that's what I call him, Looney. This is another survival in space kind of deal. And, there's some really intense stuff that happens in this film. It's almost it's action-packed. This is a really suspenseful film, and you definitely feel the stress of this situation that these astronauts find themselves in. Now, I hear we're supposed to be getting this on 4K at some point. I don't know when exactly, but I've got to imagine that a 4K transfer of this film would just look amazing. So I will definitely be keeping an eye out for that. Now, this is another one I don't own, at least on physical media. I do have a digital copy of it, but as far as physical media goes, I'm waiting for a 4K release before I pick this up. I didn't want to pick up a Blu-ray and then have the 4K come out 6 months later. For this particular film, I'd like to buy it only once on physical media. So I'm waiting for the 4K. And I suppose we can't really talk about survival films without mentioning the 2000 film Castaway, starring Tom Hanks. This is a great film. It's not the kind of film that I can personally rewatch multiple times. I do think it's really well done, but I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Tom Hanks fan. I mean, I like him, but I've always just thought he was kind of soft and didn't really have enough edge for my taste. His personality, just his whole demeanor, the way Tom Hanks is. I like a little bit more edginess to the actors that I'm into. But this is a great film. Bear with me. It's been quite a few years since I've seen it. If I remember right, he was a FedEx guy, right? And plane crashes in the South Pacific somewhere, I think. Anyway, he ends up on an island stranded for a long time. I don't remember how long, years. But, and spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen this, he does get off the island eventually. And to me, the reason I bring this up is because the most compelling part of the film is what happens when he returns to civilization. It's heartbreaking. It really is. But it gives the film this added realism, that sometimes things are not as clean and neat as we'd like them to be. Sometimes things end up a little bit messy. And I just thought it was really interesting watching how Tom Hanks' character coped with life, coped with the aftermath once he got back to civilization, right? How he coped with how everything had changed while he was gone. So I just think it's it's a good film. It's a really well done film. Like I said, it's not the kind of film I can watch very often, and I don't even know if I'll ever buy it on physical, but it's one I would definitely recommend watching at least once if you've never seen it. Okay, and then finally, for my last honorable mention, I got to bring up another space story, space survival, and that is Interstellar from Christopher Nolan. Little Matthew McConaughey here, Anne Hathaway, Michael Caine. Great cast all the way around, right? There's other people in this too, of course. Jessica Chastain. Yeah, great film. And, this takes the survival concept and kind of expands it in a big way, right? Because this is about the survival of the human race. Yeah, I love this film. By the way, if you haven't seen my video on reference 4K discs, this is definitely on there. This is absolutely a reference 4K title. It's one of the best titles I think that's been released on 4K, and it just looks absolutely stunning. So if you've never seen the 4K of this film, you should definitely pick it up at some point. It's well worth it. And in general, the thing I really like about this film is it gives you a lot to think about, a lot to chew on. It's not just a simplistic like survival type film. There's like some really deep issues and subtext and whatnot that they get into here. So yeah, I love Interstellar. Great film. If by some chance you've never seen it, yeah, you definitely need to see this. It's great. Okay, so that about wraps up my list of favorite survival movies of all time. Let me know what you think in the comments. I love hearing your feedback. What are some of your favorite survival films? What do you think of my list here? Are any of my choices here some of your favorites as well? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you soon.